is a bold essay in the art of the macabre, a venture to the ultimate reaches of terror. A motion picture definitely not for the squeamish. And we beg you, as the tension builds to the screaming point, as shock after shock assaults your senses, try to remember that this is only a motion picture.
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast That Wouldn't Die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
Hey there, kids.
This week, we'll be discussing the horror classic, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. And when I say classic, I mean classic in terms of age as much as anything. Starring Bette Davis and Joan Crawford.
Hey, it's old, but it stands up, brother. It stands up.
And it's no older than Psycho, which we also haven't discussed on the show. But I love Psycho. I'd love to discuss it at some point.
Love Psycho.
It's good to. I have a confession for you, Aaron.
Yeah.
I have never seen Whatever Happened to Baby Jane before.
Do you know there's also a drag version of it?
That is the least surprising thing I've heard all day. Let me tell you. One look at Bette Davis, I'm like, whoa.
Oh my God, Bette Davis. I mean, clearly that's the better. You know, if you have two choices, you want the Bette Davis role. That is just the best.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I read that. Well, first of all, Joan Crawford's eyebrows were very distracting. And she was supposed to be the normal. I guess those are just her regular eyebrows, but they're like 2 inches thick.
It's half painted. All those old ladies back then, it was all like shaved off and repainted in. But they show you all the old pictures from when they were young. I mean, they were both gorgeous. I mean, Joan Crawford was gorgeous before she became this. Before she came this a caricature, like a caricature of herself.
Right. We're going to talk about all this good stuff. But go ahead.
Did you watch the Ryan Murphy movie about them?
Okay, this is important. I had heard, because I was obviously aware of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. So when it was called Feud, Betty and Joan or something like that. And it starred
fantastic.
Susan Sarandon.
Yeah.
And the one whose name just jumped right out of my brain. Who's the other one?
Oh, and I just looked it up too.
Crap. Jessica Lange. Jessica Lange is the other one. And so literally I started watching it last night. I found it very interesting.
It's fantastic. Knocks it out of the park. Oh, Ryan Murphy. He's a touch of gold.
He's a touch of gold. So he is
an American treasure.
Damn it all to hell. No, because it's like I was vaguely aware that there was some kind of tension, if you will, between the leads in this movie. But I know there's scenes from this movie that are always in like the 100 scariest moments in American history. You know, there's this, I think it's specifically the scene where Joan Crawford opens up the platter to reveal that huge rat.
Yes!
Yes, that's a good one. And the other scene they talk about is where Joan Crawford goes to Bette Davis, like, you wouldn't be able to do this stuff to me if I wasn't in this chair. And she turns around and goes, but you are, Blanche. You are in that chair.
Blanche.
Totally. It's good stuff. I'm not gonna lie.
I think didn't one of our sisters dress up as not Joan Crawford, but Bette Davis for one Halloween? I think Megan did.
Is that you may be right. That is comedy and horror gold all rolled into one.
Solid gold, baby. Solid gold. Well, let me do my 30-second review.
Hit me.
You got like a spoiled, rotten Shirley Temple back in the old vaudeville days. And the father is totally a stage daddy, forsakes the other daughter and the wife, which were the two sour pickle children. I mean, they couldn't be more grumpy. I mean, I'm sure little Shirley Temple was a monster. So, cut ahead to the future. Those child stars never quite turn out the way they are. And now Sourpuss sister is the queen of Hollywood. and she is putting in her sister. There's a writer that, for every movie she makes, you got to put my sister in a movie. And then whammo crasho, some mysterious accident, and now the older sister, who's the Queen of Hollywood, is now paralyzed. So cut to like 30 years later, they're living in a house in Hancock Park, old and away from society, and the older sister, I don't know which is which, but Shirley Temple's a crazy alcoholic who's still walking around like she's a baby doll. Bad business ensues. Nobody dies. Pardon me. The stars don't die. Other people die.
Like one person dies.
Yeah.
Poor Elvira.
Poor Elvira, and I'm not really sure how Betty Davis dealt with that, because I think she's tiny as a pixie.
Oh, trust me. I have notes.
Do you
about
remember
many
our
of these
Aunt
things.
Marge?
Yes.
Aunt Marge was as small as a pixie. She brought like old costume clothes from the family from like the 1800s, and even 8-year-old children, or at least 8-year-old Dohertys, couldn't fit into it.
No question. 75 pounds soaking wet.
Yes, absolutely.
No question. Now, okay. Like I had said, I had seen like scenes from this, but I'd never seen it from top to bottom until this viewing a couple days
I don't
ago.
even know how you call yourself a Doherty. I think Mother made us watch it or something. I don't know. It was like a requirement.
I absolutely recall walking through and seeing certain scenes with the Doherty family watching where I was literally like just bamboozled. I had no idea what was happening. I'm like, why is she mean to the woman in the wheelchair? Why is there a rat on the plate?
Why isn't there a rat on every plate? Well, we're in an interesting situation, because it's usually me watching your shows that I have never seen from the 80s. So now you're watching one of my shows from the 60s.
From your youth.
From my youth. I think I was going through my first divorce around 1966 when this came out. Oh my God.
Wait, before you say anything else, Joan Crawford and Betty Davis were both about 55 in this movie, by the way. I mean, in Feud, they're being played by women well into their late 70s.
It was a different time, man.
Different time.
Well, if you remember Sunset Boulevard? I mean,
Gloria
how
Swanson.
old was... Yeah, but she was in her 40s.
Right.
And how old was what's his name?
Wilford Brimley.
He's not Wilford Brimley.
No. You're talking about crap. William Holden. William Holden.
Yeah. William Holden. All right. So how old's William Holden? Like 29 here in Sunset Boulevard?
William Holden was in the ground by 45.
Yeah.
It was a hard life.
He looked like he was 50, and I'm sure he wasn't in his 20s, but he was probably in his early 30s.
Right.
Right?
It was a hard life.
I mean, Gloria Swanson probably had 10 years. And by the way, her skin was perfect. She may have been crazy, but she had perfect skin.
Okay. I want it in the record that nobody under the age of 50 knows what the hell we're talking about. Noses.
That's because, let me tell you why. This has got to be a Gen X thing. We still remember the fact that there are only 12 channels. So, God forbid you would go play a board game or write a novel. You just watch whatever the F was on.
That is true.
And it was old movies in the afternoons or whatever. That was it. Before cable, before VHS, you watched it. Why? Because it was on.
I mean, I was watching on Sunday afternoons frickin' Three Stooges shorts. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, that was just a thing. I mean, those things must have been 50 years old if they were a day.
Laurel and Hardy.
Okay, that's too old for me.
No. It was around the same time. Like there was a renaissance. Remember, we used to watch like Buckwheat and Alfalfa.
Our Gang, Little Rascals. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they needed to fill those 12 channels that all signed off at midnight anyway.
It's sad but true. Okay, so when did you first encounter Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
I'm sure I was young. I have no idea. I'm sure it was on TV. It was probably a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, creepy peepee, and then we just watched it.
Okay.
And folks, I don't know why we call it creepy peepee. Maybe it's so creepy it makes you go peepee, but that's just something we used to say in the Doherty family.
I've never heard that term before in my life.
Well,
so
it was for the first family, not the second family.
Clearly. Sweet Jesus. Are you ready? Should we just jump right in?
I thought we already had Brother Bear.
We're bouncing all over the place, let me tell you. You want to start?
Well, what do you think?
Are we doing our reviews right now?
Oh, son of a bitch. All right, never mind. All right.
What are you? I threw it to you, and you said, all right, and then sat in silence. Would you like me to go first?
I thought you would ramble on because I was trying to read my notes, and then I noticed there was a lot of dead air.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. So did our audience.
I just have sour sisters because you know what? Here's the thing.
Play it on me.
I'm not going to reveal the end, but I'm just going to give you an interpretation.
Okay.
I always thought the end, which I'm not going to say what it is, was her just saying something to chill sister out.
Yeah, but this movie is 75 years old. You can reveal the spoil alert at the end if you want.
Well, at the end, yes. They're at the beach because Betty Davis's character has killed the maid, and like the jig is up.
Right.
So she panics. She drags her. Right. Cops are on the way. They've already knocking on the door. Where's Elvira? So she grabs her crippled sister, who she's had tied up in bed and not feeding or giving her water, and drags her out to the beach and just kind of lays her on the beach. So at one point, Joan Crawford's character says, "It's not your fault. I was the one who was angry because you had been making fun of me, and I'm the one who crashed the car. It's my fault."
Let's set this up. Okay, let's set this up. At the height of Joan Crawford's powers, right? It cuts to a scene where Betty Davis and Joan Crawford are driving home, and they have one of those big old gates, and one of them gets out of the car and is opening the gate, and all you see is the other person's like hand, like put the car in gear essentially, and floor it.
And guns it,
yeah. And tried to run down the other. Smash cut 30 years later, Joan Crawford's in the wheelchair, and everybody thinks that Betty Davis, in a fit of jealousy, because, you know, baby Jane's career's gone down the crapper.
And she's a drunk. She's a mess.
She's just
So I always just assumed that she was telling her sister that it wasn't her fault just to appease her so she could get help, because it immediately calmed her sister down. But this time when I listened to it, I'm like, what if she's saying the truth?
I absolutely think she was saying the truth.
I have never considered that till this time. So in a way, she deserves everything she got.
Well, okay, this is an interesting question. So
what if dig this, and then we could actually tell people what the hell's going on instead of just my conspiracy theories.
Go ahead.
What if Blanche, Joan Crawford, was forcing the studios to put her sister in shitty movies?
Well, we don't know that.
But what if?
Well, and that's
because they are forcing her to put her into movies versus, you know, just letting her career die naturally.
Right. I kind of feel that we don't always know.
What if we don't always know, but yeah. Because I was like, it didn't make sense, but I guess you could break your back running your giant steel car into steel iron gates.
This part is kind of, I had questions about that. So the reveal is Joan Crawford, Blanche, the quote unquote good sister, got pissed off because Betty Davis was drunk as per usual and was making fun of her at a Hollywood party type, essentially.
Right.
So she's like, even though for the last 20 years, I've basically written it into my contract as a big star that you have to put Betty Davis, Baby Jane, in these movies, even though she blows, Now I'm
Right.
pissed off because one time she got drunk at a party and made fun of me. So now I'm in a murderous rage.
Well, I gotta believe because they were. I mean, the best part is you see these studio moguls watching films of these early Betty Davis things where she was fine, but they're like, "Oh my God, she's so terrible."
These were real.
There was nothing wrong. These were real clips from real movies.
Real clips of real movies from Betty Davis, like in her heyday. And these studio types are like, oh man, what kind of accent was that? Is she doing a Southern accent? I don't know what that was. We're going to shelve this movie. Maybe we'll send it over in Europe. Who cares? And I kept thinking, I mean, maybe you know something from the Ryan Murphy show. Is Betty Davis cool with these guys critiquing literally her real roles and talking trash about it in the course of this movie? I don't know.
You got to watch it because, of course, as soon as Betty gets on set, she immediately takes the director as a lover, blowing up her own marriage just so she kept getting better and more screen time, more
Spoiler
screen time,
alert.
more screen time.
Well,
Spoiler alert.
Well, and this is the thing. I read behind the scenes on this where they talked about how these two actresses who were rivals, let's just say. People say they hated each other, but they were basically rivals for similar roles around the same time.
Right.
But they were kind of playing in a way to type in this movie because Betty Davis always kind of played kind of these fiery, spunky types. And Joan Crawford often played kind of like the down on their luck. Oh, we hope that they can make it. Good luck, Joan. You can do it.
Always had to work for everything that they got. Yeah.
Right. So it was kind of, especially for Betty Davis, kind of a bizarro extension of kind of roles that they used to play in their heyday because they were both has-beens when they made this movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, by the time men worked forever,
right.
Women, by the time they started getting into their 40s, they were, especially in old Hollywood, and even now, they're in the dustbin.
Absolutely. No, I mean, no question. Now, it's interesting because watching this, I actually found Joan Crawford more compelling. I thought the way she reacted to things was very sincere. You very easily empathize with where she was at. Whereas now Betty Davis, obviously that's the more fun role. I mean, who wouldn't want to be the kooky, crazy sister downstairs with the pigtails in your hair running wild?
Absolutely. Dressed like she's in the 1920s with still the locks from when she was 12 years old, the Shirley Temple curls. Oh my God.
Absolutely. But I kind of appreciate the subtle realism of Joan Crawford's role. Now, that being said, there's a bizarre moment where she basically does like wheelies in her wheelchair in her room screaming, ah, she's rolling around. It's like, I get it. I get it that you're frustrated, but this is a bizarre reaction to that. Come on. Good times.
First of all,
hit me.
Well, I get this from Feud, which you haven't seen yet. I think you'll notice through the film that Joan Crawford starts looking younger and younger.
Oh, maybe
and her skin is smoother and smoother by the end.
Right.
So that was a huge complaint that Betty Davis like, what the hell's going on? Because they started needing more and more screen time because Joan wouldn't get shot by the end just to piss everybody off until she looked absolutely perfect. And she was like, the complaint was she was looking younger as the movie progresses.
I can see that.
They had their own little revenge. If you can't sleep with the director, you might as well just be a pain in the ass. So much so that they disinvited her to Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte.
Yeah, same director, Betty Davis, and she was supposed to star opposite again. They gave her the hook. Who did they bring in? Olivia de Havilland or somebody?
Yeah, Olivia de Havilland, who always was a little crazy to begin with. She could have been Baby Jane.
They are all crazy, and I'm going to talk about this in behind the scenes. But when I saw old Baby Jane rolling around, first thing I thought was Witchy Poo from HR Pufnstuf, if you remember that. Just
HR Pufnstuf.
She's had
where you go when things get
rough.
It
was that creepy kind of witchy look on her face because it's all the horrible tons of makeup all over her.
It's like almost kabuki,
yes,
except for the deep wrinkles and the smoker's lines.
Awful. That's the scariest part, frankly.
I know she smelled like Pall Malls and whiskey.
No question.
And mothballs and maybe like a rose. Our elderly relatives who passed away before you were born always smelled like rose, or it's like they bought perfume in the Victorian era and just kept using it.
I don't think they were quite that old, but yeah, I take your point. Good times. I kept thinking, Blanche, your sister is slowly murdering you in a variety of ways, making you afraid to eat and then not feeding you. You have a window. Why aren't you shouting? I mean, ostensibly, she's afraid of what her sister will do. What, starve you more?
Yeah, because this really takes place over a couple of days. It's really like it escalates fast. It's like boom, boom, boom. But one, your sister's a bitch, so you don't have enough for an apartment to send her off in. Why does she gotta live with you? And two, you're in a wheelchair. Why the F are you living upstairs?
Right. Why is your apartment's up the craziest, hugest stair? It's like the Taj Mahal, and there's your little room at the top. How did they get your ass up there in the first place? I mean, at one point.
Exactly.
At one point,
and you never leave the house. You don't go to the doctor. Betty Davis, throws you over her shoulder and carries you down the stairs?
Well, she's met with Dr. Shelby in the past. It's just not
he
anymore.
Must come to her.
But there's a scene where Blanche, with her crippled legs, like basically drags her body down the stairs to try to get to the phone. Betty Davis finds her, knocks her unconscious. And then I was like, do you have some kind of pulley system? How are you getting her unconscious form up those huge stairs by yourself, 75-year-old granny?
Yeah, it's all bad. It's all bad. You don't want any of that going on in your life.
You do not.
And where did this house come from? Because they were talking about how she is buying Valentino's old mansion. This is not a mansion. This is a smaller house in Hancock
It's a good sized. You're absolutely right.
I mean, it's a nice house.
It ain't Pickfair.
It's not Valentino's old house. Yeah,
right. You're absolutely right. It's not some huge compound. Clearly, they're not in that house anymore where she got run down or whatever, because there's not a huge gate anymore.
No.
It's a good sized upper middle class house.
That's what I would say.
But I mean, clearly she's still getting checks in the mail because that's a bone of contention.
But she's seen no one.
Right. Except for Elvira, the cleaning lady who comes once a week.
Wouldn't you just kill yourself if you had to just sit in the tiny room with your canary, smoking your Pall Malls and reading the Reader's Digest books or whatever, and you have your crazy sister?
You are right. It escalates quickly because for 30 years, I guess, without incident,
it's been all cool for 30 years. And it seems to me that if somebody's trying to run over somebody, it ain't so cool.
It ain't so cool. It's what we say in the biz, because
that's biz talk, kids.
That's biz talk. Because I think it's like Blanche starts talking to Dr. Shelby about getting her sister sent to the senior center for insane former child stars. I don't know where she wants to send her. Do we know what the issue is?
It is 100%. It's like one of the kids from The Little Princess is there. You got one of the girls from An Old Black Beauty, and then you got Betty Davis.
And then there's Betty Davis
at the home for the criminally insane child stars.
Former child stars.
No
question.
Stars.
Todd Bridges is there. No offense, Todd, if you're listening. But
all the Coreys that ever were are secretly living on that island with Elvis.
Now it's an island. I love it's like we're airdropping them in, basically, once they reach a certain age. Exactly. But
it's the island of Dr. Bombay. Emergency, come right away.
So is that the inciting incident, basically, that Blanche has now decided after 30 years, I'm shipping my crazy sister off somewhere? And
because they blocked the delivery of the grocery store, and I wish I could call someone, bring me 6 bottles of gin and a couple bottles of scotch and put it on my tab.
That was the craziest thing.
That's olden days. I remember going to the ice cream man in kindergarten, trying to get some ice cream and tell them to charge my parents. And they're like, no.
That's not going to work. No, look, I understand DoorDash and Uber Eats and Amazon Fresh. That's not my complaint. The issue that she's like, yes, I need 6 bottles of gin and 3 bottles of scotch. Oh, having a party, are you? No, just for myself.
And 1 glass, please.
And a straw, if you will.
Just a single straw. That's all I need. And I don't know. See, I don't know hard liquor drinkers. If you're that kind of an alcoholic, do you just pick one or you just mix it up?
I just like to mix it up. You know what I'm saying?
Just mix it up. I'm just going to, at one point she has a tumbler glass, like an iced tea glass, which it looks like iced tea, but I guess it's just scotch.
Straight scotch. No, I was laughing.
You just kind of heat it up on the stove before you drink it.
That's all you need. I was teasing over the summer. I was teasing some friends because they were drinking gin, and I'm like, "Are you 75 years old?" I'm not drinking gin.
That's what I think about whiskey.
Well, okay. There's
gin and juice, brother. Gin and juice.
No, I'm not. So, look, tequila.
Now whiskey, that's 100-year-old thing. I don't care how trendy you.
What about like bourbon? That's even more. You know what I mean? No, yeah, I'm not. Look,
yeah, you're playing golf. You walk around 24/7 like you're playing golf. Those dudes with their shiny collared shirts.
That is correct.
Yeah, those are the people drinking bourbon.
Yeah, not I said the. I don't drink much, truth be told. But if I'm on,
and it's not bourbon.
Look, if I'm not drinking bourbon, I ain't drinking anything at all. That's yeah, I'm Betty Davis.
Well, you know, in the Phoenix family, that's my mom's side of the family. That's what you put in the eggnog. It's Jack Daniels.
I thought you put rum in with the eggnog. No, is it Jack?
Yeah, normal people. Yeah, the Phoenixes always put Jack Daniels in,
and it was just a splash of the nog, if I remember correctly. Just a little splash for color. No.
Just for color, just to lighten up the whiskey a tad.
Just a splash, if you will. So there's no reason she can't yell out the window to the very nosy neighbors next door who absolutely notice nothing, by the way, who are constantly going, "Hey, how's it going?"
There's a teenager over there. Someone must be going in and out all effing day.
No question.
Well, I really think the catalyst too of the violence is the sister knows what's going on, that she's selling the house and putting her ass in a crazy home.
Right. She's going to sell their house and and put her in the island of misfit former child stars. No question.
Exactly. She's already been practicing her signature. She's already been cashing checks.
Oh, and the voice.
Do it as
the voice.
Pleases.
She's practicing.
That's
Betty Davis.
That is the shittiest part. That's the shittiest
Well, I
part.
wrote down lip syncing, and I was complaining earlier about little baby Jane in the past doing her singing and dancing. Let me sing one for daddy stuff. That was horrendous lip syncing.
I've written a letter to daddy.
That's it. Exactly.
His address is heaven above. Now, you could replace her with the crazy kid from The Bad Seed.
Yes.
They are dressed almost the same.
Absolutely. What did she ever do? Whatever happened to The Bad Seed? That should be the next movie.
No, that's like Mary McCormick. She was somebody famous.
No, she wasn't.
I gotta look it up.
That was it for
I
The Bad
swear
Seed.
to you.
We're all over the map in old black and white horror movies from the 60s, by the way.
It's all black and white, and it's all children gone bad.
I wondered about the bizarro subplot of the pianist, the out of work piano player who like does a fake English affectation because his mom is English, like his mom is Katie Nana from Mary Poppins.
It is Katie Nana. It's Katie Nana. Oh.
So what is it? Baby Jane is like, well, I'm starving to death, my famous sister, so I'm going to go back on the road as Baby Jane at 75 years old. So I got to hire an accompanist but how he still lives at home with his mom. He's not as nearly as accomplished as she thinks. And she's paying him to play her old songs. And there's a point where she says, I have to go get my costumes for the show that I'm putting on. And she goes literally to the Western Cowboy Costume Company. So there's a place, evidently on Wilshire Boulevard, that only sells or rents cowboy costumes.
Well, it's Hollywood.
So
they probably outsourced everything.
Well, but the real, okay, look, I get it. It's Hollywood. You're going to have like costume stores or whatever, costume rental places. But the fact this whole place is devoted just for cowboy costumes, I guess there were a lot of cowboy shows on TV at that time. Is that the explanation?
Mm-hmm. Well, that is true. Westerns were huge forever, from the silent film up through the 50s, and a lot of Western TV shows. All right. Speaking of which, the bad seed was in Wagon Train.
And that's all you got.
No,
she was the star of the bad seed,
worked for
and then
years.
She was on Wagon Train.
She was on Desperate Housewives.
You are crazy.
I got it right here. She was on Frost Nixon. She played Pat Nixon. Did you watch Frost Nixon? She is alive and working right now.
You are out of your damn mind. Now we're both looking this up. This is good pod.
Dude, she was in The Sopranos.
Bad seed.
Liz LaServa. She's working. She was on
Patty McCormick.
Yeah.
Is that who you're talking
about? Yeah. I'm not saying
Rhoda Penmark. She was on The Ropers.
Yes, I didn't even know that was a spin-off.
Right.
Magna
PI. I have to go back and watch these movies. Murder,
She Wrote. She's done 12 different versions of The Bad Bean, but she was on Frost Nixon. She was on Criminal Minds, Private Practice, Heart of Dixie. The Bad Seed Returns, which is coming out this year.
Even badder.
A badder seed.
Look.
All right, we're just drifting. You know what? I got attention deficit on old horror movies.
Clearly. Patty McCormick, wherever you are, we appreciate you. She's the hardest working woman in show business, but she's by no means Joan Crawford and Bette Davis. Can we stipulate that
I will stipulate to that. But she is also not like the crazy people from all the Andy Warhol movies.
Bugsy Malone.
Bugsy Malone.
So there were multiple times where I felt like Elvira made a bad move.
Yeah.
Elvira and Blanche had a special friendship.
Right.
Basically. And Elvira was like, you got to do something about your crazy sister. She cray. You got to do something.
She talks to her. Elvira talks to Bette Davis like she's a child.
Right, like she's insano.
An insano
but
child.
At one point,
young lady, you better put that axe down, young lady.
Pretty much.
It's a paraphrase.
So Elvira shows up one day and Baby Jane's like, hey, you know what? I got up early and did all your chores. Here's your pay, your $15, which seems very low, by the way. See you next week. And Elvira's like, shouldn't I check in on Blanche? She's like, no, she's sleeping. She's like, okay, deuces. And then just leaves. You know she's crazy. Mm-hmm. You can't just be like, okay, you say she's asleep? Okay, I'll leave. Mm-hmm. And you've done all the chores? Unbelievable, but hey, give me the 15 and I'm out.
Dude, out.
Now, later, Elvira comes to her senses and is like, I'm going in to see Blanche. Because at this point, she shows up again.
Yeah.
And Baby Jane's like, here's another 15. Hit the road. And by the way, you're fired because you're asking too many questions.
Yeah, that really puts her over the edge. She's like really suspicious for that.
So she goes in and basically can't get into Blanche's room. Blanche isn't answering. So she's getting like a hammer and a screwdriver to try to break into the room. Yeah. And that's when Baby Jane comes back. And Baby Jane opens the door. And there's Blanche literally tied to her bed, trussed up,
and gagged.
Arms in a horrible position, gagged.
Like up. She's sitting up. It's really one of those handle things over the bed to help people in wheelchairs pull themselves up. She's tied in an upright position to that, gagged. And then Elvira makes the fatal mistake of every horror movie.
It was so freaking ridiculous. She had a hammer in her hand, and she puts the hammer down to go, and then turns her back on Betty Davis and rolls in there to look at Blanche. Oh my God, what happened? Why are you mumbling at me? Why are you gesturing with your head at me, Blanche? What do you mean? You mean, why are you pointing at your sister over my shoulder? I don't understand. Crack. And that's the end of Elvira.
Yeah, she put the hammer down, but she didn't put the hammer down like she should have.
You damn right. If you're going to put the hammer down, you got to really put the hammer down, Elvira. And we don't know what happened to Elvira's body. It could just be under Blanche's bed. We have no idea.
We don't know.
No
She clearly couldn't have taken it anywhere. I don't know how she got Joan Crawford's body in the car, because we, of course, don't see that. And I mean, you see her dragging out of the room, but we don't see her how she gets her down the effing stairs. Maybe she just rolls her down.
Look, let's be honest. Betty Davis, she's spry. Okay, she's strong as an ox. She's wiry. There is the scene where she seems to have Elvira wrapped in like plastic or something, and is stuffing her corpse in the back of the car.
Oh yeah,
when the nosy neighbor rolls up and is just like, "What's up? How's it going? What are you doing back there with the plastic wrap? Why is there an old corpse hanging on the back?"
I'm sorry, I thought it was one of the Manson kids lurking around the neighborhood, but as long as it's just you.
I mean, could Elvira still be in the back of the trunk of the car? I don't know. It's anything's possible.
Was she coming? Was she going?
Was she coming? Was she going? And that's the inevitable downfall, because the accompanist kind of figures out shit's crazy up in here, and he runs off, and I guess off camera tells the cops.
Right.
Like there's things that happen in this movie that are off camera. Like, for example, earlier in the movie, when Joan Crawford is now the big star, they yada that.
Yeah.
Like, there's no explanation why Baby Jane went from big star in the vaudeville circuit, evidently, to worthless, and her sister's now a huge star. Just suddenly, as if somebody waved a magic wand.
Right.
By the way, you're a big star now. So, good times. What else you got? You got anything else?
There's just so many good stuff. Yeah, it's very interesting. Some of the good stuff about Betty Davis is she's always telling people, people who are clearly 40 years younger than her, don't you know who I am? It's like 1965, and she was like a star in 1912.
She was a star in 1912 on stage.
On vaudeville.
This was not...
So she's asking people in their 30s, don't you know who I am? Why?
She was big in the Catskills, basically. And she's in LA now, 75 years later, going, maybe you recognize me. And people are like, well, the funny thing is everyone makes a face and then says, oh, of course.
Everyone was much more polite in the 60s. Is that what it is?
Right.
Like, I don't know who you are, lady.
Right, exactly. This is LA, okay? You're not going to tell me something about, well, I was big. I was big in the Catskills in 1912.
That's right.
Before the First World War. That's not going to get you that gets you nothing.
Nothing,
I love in the final scene where literally Blanche is just expiring in the sand on a busy public beach, and no one seems to notice.
She's been there since like the night. And eventually she starts cooking in her little wool burrito until her sister pulls back the blanket, and still nobody notices. And that's where she looks her very youngest, because she's laying back so her skin's all smooth and laying flat.
That's what happens just as you were about to expire on the hot summer sand with 70 people walking around stepping over your corpse. Very sad. Well,
at the end, when Betty Davis gets up and starts dancing with her ice cream, people are like, "Ike." They were not appeasing her anymore. They're like, "Get the F away from crazy lady and her ice cream."
I love it. I love it. It is
Yeah,
dynamite.
all my crap is all like behind the scenes stuff. I
Shall we
mean,
go
it's a
behind the scenes
classic. It's
then?
a classic, especially if you have a sister.
Especially if you have a sister that you secretly hate. Then it's perfect for you.
Womp, womp,
Do you want
womp.
to? Do you have some behind the scenes? Do you want to hit it up first?
Well, one of the stories is that scene where after Elvira's been killed and Betty Davis is dragging Joan Crawford out. So supposedly Joan Crawford had tied all these weights to herself so that she was
Oh, really?
like 50 pounds heavier.
That's hilarious. That's good
Classic.
stuff. Betty Davis did all her own makeup, and she said she was inspired by these old women that she would see walking around LA, where it's that thing where it's like clearly they don't wash their face.
Right.
They just get up each morning and add another layer of makeup. And Betty Davis's daughter, who played the teenage next door
Right.
neighbor, literally saw Betty Davis in her makeup and was like, "Mother, you've gone too far.
You've gone too far, mother."
This is too much."
And-
Because evidently, to get the look that she wanted, no self-respecting makeup artist would do it because they wouldn't want their name on it.
Right.
They're like, "Screw that. You're on your own." But it worked. It was dynamite.
Well, the daughter is quite a terrible actress.
She's in one scene or two scenes.
Oh,
Whatever.
she was stiff, and she was trying to break in too. So at least her mom gave her a handout. But of course, she ended up writing a tell-all book about her mother too.
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. Right after Joan Crawford died in the late 70s, her adopted daughter wrote a tell-all book, Mommy Dearest, which became the movie starring Faye Dunaway. That was universally panned. People said Faye Dunaway was ridiculous.
It is.
It's a sad
It's camp.
situation.
But I will tell you,
It's camp.
everyone I knew read that book. That was a hot book when it came out. And I was in high school. I was like 15, and everybody read it, would pass it along. It was like,
Now, people say that it was bullshit. Basically, like she had two other adopted children who said, she was strict, but she never abused us. And basically every like famous, even Betty Davis came to Joan Crawford's defense, basically saying, we didn't see anything like that. Yes, she was strict, but we didn't see anything. So
yeah, but I mean, anything is possible. I've heard all that stuff too. But different people have different relationships with their parents.
that's true. It's absolutely true. But you're right. That's interesting. That
she's a movie star. Do you think you're going to beat your child in front of Betty Davis, who's your rival in all things? Get back over here, Christina. Betty's here. Let me slap you around a little bit. Let me put a cigarette on your forehead.
I'm going to show Betty how I handle my biz. Get me a couple wire hangers so I can do this right.
Hold my drink.
Exactly. Now, Betty Davis's daughter, B.D. Merrill, I think her name was, who was in this movie, wrote her own tell-all while Betty Davis was still alive.
Ooh,
basically
that's bold.
saying, yes, bold as brass. Now, she didn't say abuse, but it was a lot of like, my mom's a drunk and, was rude to me on occasion. I don't know.
She could be gruff. I think the other big thing is she was absent and she was going through husbands left and right.
Right. Which is true of Joan Crawford as well.
Right.
Do you go back? I mean, frankly, it's a Hollywood thing. These people get married 5 times.
Yeah.
Oh, they get married for 6 months here, divorce, get married 2 years there, divorce. They all do it like that for some bizarro reason.
Honestly, people who get divorced after 6 months, that blows my mind. Did you meet at the wedding, or you couldn't even pull it into your first anniversary?
It's a sad situation.
Was he hiding bodies in the basement? I mean, I don't even get that. That blows my mind.
If he is, that's cause for divorce.
It is.
I think it's a good rule.
Maybe not in Florida.
In most, in at least 30
of the northern states.
Wah, wah. Now, I mean, I didn't see this, but in the TV show, they talked about how Joan Crawford found the book and was the original driving force for having this movie made.
I heard some scuttlebutt about this was supposed to be empowering for the women because we're older, or at least that's how they sold it or something. But then in the end, in the movie, I'm going to tell you, the director put it out, would whisper things to each of them to really turn them against each other to get
kind of
that.
a Stanley Kubricky
Yeah.
kind of move.
If Stanley
basically.
Kubrick was also effing one of the actors.
Well, what they said was they couldn't get parts anymore because of their age. So Joan Crawford basically found these roles, found this book. It was a book before it was a movie, and kind of championed it, found a director, and then he went at and basically made it happen. No one wanted to make a movie where the main characters are two 50-something women at that time.
If that's true, she was 100% right, because it's a classic. It is a classic.
Now, they wanted to make it in color, but Bette Davis said it should be in black and white because if it was in color, she said it would make a sad story look pretty. And she was opposed to that.
Well, they're old. They were black and white stars, too. So it's kind of appropriate that it's black and white, I thought. I never questioned that.
Right. Let's see. What's interesting, I read about the show Feud, that they've obviously hired famous actresses of today to play these older characters, and Catherine Zeta-Jones was playing Olivia de Havilland, who was still alive at the time, by the way, which is crazy. She may still be alive now, for all I know. Good Lord,
you could be watching this right now.
You could be listening. So Catherine Zeta did not go talk to Olivia de Havilland, but she did go talk to Kirk Douglas, who was still alive at the time, to get his impressions of Joan Crawford and Bette Davis. And his response was basically, Bette Davis, oh, Betty, she, what a broad kind of move like that. Basically like, my kind of lady kind of thing. But when he was asked about Joan Crawford, he's like, she was effing nuts. At 95 years old, these are his recollections.
So I want to read his book.
You should.
Hollywood Dearest,
by the way.
I don't know. I mean, they're all crazy swinging jackasses, but I would love to just hear the unvarnished truth. They always say there was also some rivalry because one of them was educated and classy, the other one was working class. There were always these things, but who's to say who started the feud? If it existed, or it was made up for the story, or did the director create all of this? Is it just a rivalry between two actresses of about the same age who are going after the same parts? Yeah,
I mean, it can be
until we got to this, and then they really started finding each other irritating as they each tried to hog the spotlight.
What's funny is Bette Davis was nominated for the role, which, like I said, kind of makes sense. It's the flashier, kind of role than kind of the more understated role that Joan Crawford was playing. But the gooch is that Joan Crawford went to all the other nominees and said, hey, if you win and you can't make it to the Academy Awards, I'd be happy to accept the award on your behalf. And that's what wound up happening. Anne Bancroft won, and Joan Crawford basically pushed Bette Davis aside and went up on stage and accepted the award for Anne Bancroft for the Miracle Worker.
Nasty.
That's a gooch.
That's a good Hollywood gooch story. Yeah,
no question. Because that's not just F you. That's like, I'm going to do it in front of the world. I want the world to know.
Everyone.
No question. Shall we talk about the cast?
Indeedly do.
Well, we talked about most of
We kind of talked about the cast. Joan Crawford. These are... You pretty much can't go wrong with these ladies. If you want to watch old Hollywood movies, just throw on anything by either one of them.
Joan Crawford.
It's fantastic.
Played Blanche Hudson. She died at the age of 72 in 1977. Famously, she was in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. She won an Academy Award for Mildred Pierce.
I love Mildred Pierce. She's such a victim in that with her snotty daughter.
She was in The Damned Don't Cry. You know
I think
that one?
no, that might have been one of her later bullshit.
She was in Torch Song. All sorts of stuff. I'm not going to read their
Yeah.
entire resume.
No, no.
Betty
So
Davis.
what are your top
played-
Betty Davis?
Betty Davis played Baby Jane Hudson. She died at the age of 81 in 1989. You know her from All About Eve, which
Yeah,
I believe
oh,
she
I
won an
love
Academy
that.
Award for that as well.
Absolutely. She was amazing in that, of course. Playing
She
in
was in
that.
Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Yeah.
Dark Victory.
Saw Dark Victory. That's where she's blind and like a spinsterly lady.
Now Voyager.
Or maybe that's
You know
now
that one?
Voyager. Anyway, I've seen both of them. One of them, she's blind.
Growing up, the only thing I knew about Betty Davis is she's got Betty Davis eyes. It's a very topical reference in 1984.
Well, there'd always be like a Betty Davis character in the old Bugs Bunny because she would have giant eyes.
Right. You can't hide your giant eyes.
Before anime, I'm going to put this rumor out that all the anime with the giant eyes are really Betty Davis eyes.
No question. Let's see. Victor Buono played the bizarre accompanist Edwin Flagg.
He was always
his
a
first
villain
movie.
on Wild Wild West.
Yeah. He was in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. He was in Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Booyah! He was in Robin and Marion. He was in Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte.
Yeah.
So all sorts of good
So
stuff.
everybody liked everybody except for Joan. Apparently, everybody kept working. They gave Joan the heave ho, which I think is a mistake.
Everybody. Do you want to know about any of the other cast members? Otherwise, I'm just going to.
What did Elvira do?
Elvira was played by Maidie Norman. You know her. She died in 1998 at the age of 85. She was in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. She was in Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. What? She was Nurse Agnes. Holy crap!
Yay!
She was the much older African American nurse that Tom Atkins throws a move at in the hallway. Hey, if only I'd met you sooner. You got to watch.
Oh,
Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
yay!
Good times. She was in Airport 77. She was in Policewoman, starring Angie Dickinson. She's obviously the biggest star of the show, as far as I'm concerned. She was quite
Clearly.
Good
Clearly
Lord.
blows away Joan and Betty.
Clearly. Let's that just made my day. Let's go ahead and look at the ratings, shall we?
What are the ratings? It's a fucking classic. Don't say anything else.
Whatever Happened to Baby Jane currently has 92% certified fresh.
As it should.
Good times. Let's look. See what we got. Some top critics here. They must have a million top critics. I couldn't find anything by Rex Reed, but maybe something will pop up here.
Rex Reed clearly never reviewed a movie.
Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian. It's still vivid, barnstorming stuff. 3 out of 5. What? That
First of
doesn't
all,
sound like a possible thing.
Barnstorming. We're still throwing around like lingo from the Great Depression. Is that what it is? Who knows what barnstorm is that are currently going to movies these days?
Can't be good. That's about it. All these reviews are from fairly recently. I mean, within the last 20 years. So I don't see anybody else. Very sad.
Boo!
So, what is your rating for Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
Oh, I'm going to give it 4.5 bottles of whiskey mixed with gin, topped with a touch of crazy out of 5.
I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 hammers to the back of the head when you shouldn't have left that hammer there.
That's what you get. That's what you get.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a great deal. The performances were really good.
Were you surprised that you liked it?
No. I mean, I knew it was kind of a classic. I have to say, I didn't find it scary. at
Yeah,
all.
I mean, it's more like you're locked in the house with crazy people. They're not coming to eat your livers or anything, but
As
it's
far
it's
as we
more like
know,
suspenseful.
it has that good suspense that you're
Right.
looking for. I think it's good for the whole family, unless they have a problem with seeing a dead rat and a dead parakeet on the platter. Poor
So many
parakeet.
tomatoes. So many tomatoes.
Well, you could have eaten the tomatoes, Blanche, in Baby Jane's defense, but that's neither here nor there.
I
Good
used to
time.
be grossed out because when she brings out the parakeet on the platter of tomatoes, there's a big blob of mayonnaise right at the bird's tail. And I always thought that was like poop or something because it was
Maybe
like
it was.
right by the butt and the tail feathers go on beyond it. So as a kid, I was like, "Oh, is that poo?"
Well, and the
No,
other thing is
it's mayonnaise.
well, you hope when she delivers the rat on the platter, she's like, "Oh, by the way, Blanche, we have rats in the cellar," and she lifts it up. That was a GD possum. That thing was freaking huge.
Dude, it's
It filled the
LA,
whole
man.
platter.
It's LA. Don't you remember the story of the giant ants? It's just
That's
one
what it
step
is.
away.
Valley of the Ants or Kingdom of the
Valley.
Ants, something like that. I don't remember what it was.
The rats of Hancock Park. Oh, and
Exactly.
that house is exactly the same way it is. The inside was a set, but the exterior is exactly the same.
Makes sense to me. So, thank you very much. Go to our page on Twitter at TPodcastTWDie. Go to our page on Facebook at the podcast that wouldn't die. Aaron, are we still on Instagram?
Indeedly do. If the hackers stay away, how come I have to keep changing the account, bad people? I don't even know if I really have to change the account. It's this Facebook thing. It's a Facebook versus Instagram versus Twitter freak out, and it's driving me crazy. But yes, we are. We are the podcast that wouldn't die. At least we were 10 minutes ago.
Can I say something else that Facebook, whatever your political persuasion is, it sucks just in general? Because I swear to God, it's 99% just ads or suggested for you. Just give me my friends, the people
Oh,
that
no.
I follow. It's like you can't do that anymore. It's 99% ads and suggested for yous.
Well, the worst part is now they've redid it so you can't just click recent, which is what I would do.
Right.
So now I see I look at 5 posts and then it's a post from yesterday. So then I
Right.
just stop. So are you telling me nobody I know out of the 300 people I know, nobody has posted anything? It's just ads. Yeah,
Right.
you're 100%. So I don't know. It makes me so angry because I always skip the default. It never lets you default to just
To
recent.
That's
I
all I
want to see
want.
the flow. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, on my
Totally.
birthday, you don't even get to see that people have posted to you. It doesn't even alert you half the time. So
Well,
3
you're
days
assuming
later,
that's
I'm
the
like, oh
algorithm. It could have
no,
just
but like
been
3 days.
unpopularity.
Shut your mouth. It would show up
Anywho,
like later. I had to like go my name and see what is on my wall. It just
that is
didn't
true.
show up naturally.
You can email us at the podcast that wouldn't die at Gmail.
Gmail.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere the finer podcasts are available. So don't forget to like, share, rate, and review, won't you?
Won't you
Aaron,
please? Won't
are
you
you
be
on
my
social
neighbor?
media? What's your
I
social
am
media?
much social, much media. I am on the Insta. I am the cult of Aaron. Join the cult. I am Don't Feed the Pigeon on the Instagram. I'm on the Twitski. I also sell my Polaroid photography on Artsy, Aaron Doherty, and First Dibs, Aaron Doherty. Buy yourself something and send me some money.
Next week, we're discussing the horror. It's not a horror movie.
It's a horror show, you son
How
of a.
dare you? It's ostensibly a comedy with a splash of science fiction because it's time travel. We're watching Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, starring Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, George Carlin. It's an all-star cast, so check that out. You can watch it for free on Amazon Prime if that does it for you. I guess you need a subscription, so it's not really free.
No, I watched it on like Tubi And it's just the same ads over and over. It's like only one person has bought ads on Tubi, and you have to watch it over and over and over again.
Until your head falls off. It's on Roku, Hoopla, Tubi, Canopy, and Pluto TV. So whichever ads you prefer, check that out. So we will
Indeedly
discuss it.
do.
If you have any thoughts, feelings, comments, or questions, send them to us, and perhaps we'll talk about them on the show like we do every week. Crickets. So there you go. Thank you very much, and be well.
Bye, children. Hopefully you're not burning to death like we are here in California. It's like a nuclear winter here. Thank you. Bye.